talking about mics, because we're having kind of like a mic heavy conversation right now. I really wish like somebody like Golden Age or somebody like that would do a really good 67.
Well, I think the problem is so first of all, it's hard to get a good 67. So what you would have to do is probably just get like one of the clones, like the Neumann clones, right?
Yeah.
Like the reissue.
The
That's
reissues,
the proper term.
Yeah.
And like some people have made them. Like I heard the Peluso 67 is pretty good. They use it over the vintage U87 that's at the studio a lot. And I don't understand why, because like just naturally, like for me, if I'm picking a microphone for a voice, it's going to come down to capsule first, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously the vintage U87 is going to have a much nicer capsule than the Peluso.
Yeah.
But apparently they like it.
It could also just depend on the voice of the person, right? So
yeah, very much so. But I don't know.
But I would tend to agree with you. I would default to the nicer capsule to start with.
Yeah, because as soon as you have like weird resonances in the capsule, like, and if you're working on speakers that you typically don't work on in a room you typically don't work in, then you're just like, you're going to get that project home and there's going to be something funky in it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that makes sense. Especially if you're not monitoring through your headphones like you should be.
Yeah. And so like, it's just like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. There's a few microphones that I'm interested in. Like I really want to hear a Bach 167. Mm-hmm. Specifically one of the old ones and not the UA ones. But I know a lot of people love the 241, the cardioid only 251 that they used to make. And what's funny, if you look at those mics, obviously they aren't going to sound like a C800, but the frequency response is closer to a C800 than a 251, which I think is super cool. Yeah. And that would kind of make sense why it rips, right? Because you have like the texture and like saturation characteristics of the 251, but it's voiced similarly to like a C800. So therefore it's going to, you know, kind of, it's going to need less work. Like working on the Telefunken was cool for some voices, but like literally like 80% of the time we were just kind of like, this is way too bright.
Too much. Yeah.
It's way too, and the one that Lee had was like, there was always some weird thing going on in 5K. I don't know if I was just dumb then, you know what I mean? Like we're all in a constant state of learning, you know? So like sometimes I'll listen to things that I did and I'm like, why the hell did I do that? And so sometimes I wonder like, maybe I was just being stupid, you know? And I was like, what's that weird 5K thing going on?
Yeah.
But it was
they
just
also could have been listening on the speakers and the environment and a bunch of things.
So I don't know, but
I've been really enjoying. So I have a TLM 102. It's been pretty good. The high end on
those are actually better than the 103.
The high end on it is a little. So if you like really bright mics, it's better than the 103. Dude, the low end on that thing is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll send it to you later, but I tracked this country guy in the woods. My buddy James Tucker.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to start talking about some guy named Oliver.
No. So we tracked my buddy James Tucker legitimately before that even came out.
Oh, that's funny.
Which is hilarious. But it was just a one take of him, and he was like, "I just want a single mic on the thing." I was like, "All right, I'm gonna have to capture enough low end to pick up the acoustic, but position it in a way that's gonna capture the vocal." Dude's a great singer. Didn't honestly need any tuning the way that it was kind of going. He did it in like 2 takes. It was amazing. I'll shoot you the song. It turned out really cool. Yeah. But I used that 102. I was so impressed with how much I didn't have to touch like the low mid range on that. I've used it before in like acapella groups, like with like beatboxers and stuff. Yeah. And you can get a good amount of low end from it too. But I mean, for such a tiny thing, like it captures so much.
That's like those Gefell M930s that are like super small. Yeah. Those things rip. Yeah. Honestly, yeah, if anyone's listening and they're thinking about getting like a TLM 102 or 103,
bro, you can get them for like $500.
Yeah, well, same with the M930s. Yeah. Just get one of those from Gefell. It's the original company that made Neumann products back in the day. Mm-hmm. They make stellar capsules. Those things sound really good.
I got mine a little cheaper because I bought it from a buddy in Ohio, fellow studio guy who I actually want to get on the podcast. I need to talk to him.
What's his name?
Eunice Latif. He owns, I think it's Black Moon is his recording studio's name.
Cool.
But he's really cool. But he sold me that mic for a really good price, so I couldn't say no to that one. But I've been using not a TLM 103, a TLM 193, which I had never heard of.
It's like how the U87, and then like smaller than that is the U89, and then smaller than that is the 193.
It is a 103 that leans more like a U87.
Yeah, they used those are really popular in voiceover work.
I really like it.
Yeah, if you want that South Park vocal sound, mics they used for South Park. Yeah,
really.
Yeah, at least like the early seasons.
That's
whatever
really
studio
funny.
they used, like the ADR facility. Like,
yeah,
they just got like a ton of 193s.
So we have a 193 at the studio at the church. I'm borrowing it from a buddy who just has a big mic closet and doesn't need it, so I'm just using it temporarily. But I've been really liking it. It sounds really great on guitars. It's been sounding really good on vocals. I tracked a couple like songs that did really well.
Send me some vocal demos, because I am I always wanted to know how those sounded, because they get kind of mixed reviews on vocals.
I liked it.
How big is it?
It's very small. It's
like
not
really
as small as a 103 or a 102.
Yeah.
It's the shape of an 87, but it's like a quarter of the size.
That's funny. That's really funny. That's like the U89 is like smaller. Okay, did I talk about the U89 on this podcast yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I went on a deep dive because Josh wants a U87, but I don't want to spend $5,000 on a vintage one.
Yeah.
And so the two mics that I keep coming back to is the Soyuz FET 017, which I've been talking about for years, never pulled the trigger on.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid it might be a little too bright. And so I would
can I pause you right there? Talking about the Shure stuff. The one thing I am actually where I don't think the new DB is going to top is that Soyuz actually makes their own cloud lifter.
Yeah.
That fixes like every problem that the 7B has.
Yeah, it does.
And it's awesome. And I don't think that the DB is going to give that same natural fix. That is, if you are like actually tracking vocals for real, I would actually recommend actually just getting the Soyuz cloud lifter, because it's awesome. And I think it's like the same price as a regular cloud lifter.
And now keep in mind, like, it's not just like a inline preamp, you know, like there's like all the mixed reviews on it are like, why does it color the sound? And it's like, that's kind of
what
the
it's
point,
for. Yeah, that's what it's for.
But
anyway, I just wanted to say that because like not enough people talk about how good that thing is. And I was amazed the first time I heard it.
Yeah, we use it all the time, and I want to get one. But so like I went on a deep dive, right? So because there's so many different microphones that like Neumann has made. And for various reasons, right? So the U89 was actually their plan to replace the U87, but then people just kept buying the U87. And so what ended up happening is they
look like
they had it's just slightly smaller than a U87. Well, I think it's like pretty smaller than U87.
It looks similar in size to the 193 actually. Maybe like a hair bigger.
So what's interesting about that mic is Neumann sat down and they were like as far as like the U87, like it's not sustainable to keep making it this way, because they would have been on like the U87i. And so they designed the U89i as like the next generation of the U87. Yeah. Nobody bought it. So then what ended up happening is Neumann, which honestly, this is like from a business perspective, this makes perfect sense. They were like, we can't keep making the U87. So now what do? Why don't we use parts from the U89? And
so that's what the U87i is?
No, that's what the U87ai is. It has so mind you, I'm not a technical person. I went on a stupid long deep dive on this and it all made sense whenever smart people were explaining it to me.
Yeah.
But So the idea is that the U87ai is essentially like a Frankenstein between a U87 and a U89. And what that resulted in is a more sensitive microphone that distorts easier.
Yeah, I really don't like the AI as
Yeah,
much.
the AIs sound bad. They do not sound like $3,600 microphones.
No, they don't. 100%.
No,
I get better sounds out of my 102.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And the only reason why that mic is still around is because people keep buying it.
Yeah.
Because if Neumann was like, hey, we're not making it anymore, then everyone's just going to go buy used ones, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
and they're not going to make any money off that. Yeah.
Yeah. And another reason why is because it's like the only microphone that like normal people recognize, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, it's $3,600. That's an expensive microphone. That's going to sound good on me. And then they hear themselves through it and they think it sounds good when really there's like way better options out there.
They're colored by the price tag.
So yeah, the U89 is way darker than a U87, and it's like what the U87 should have been. And
maybe that is your mic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you do love a dark mic.
I do. I've been talking about how I hate bright mics forever, but then like all my favorite vocals are either vintage U67s, U47s, or something like a C800.
Yeah, but like vintage, they're just gonna, the top end is gonna just sound different. Like it's not gonna be
that's same. That's like the craziest thing about the U67 is that like like the tolerance levels were so high on those, and they all age differently, and then they've all been repaired differently.
Yeah, so now they all sound different.
Yeah, to the point where like it's impossible to like really get a good one unless if you have a lot of money. And you know,
I've used a good one in that studio in Charlotte, and it was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
but the difference between it, because we had that one at that studio in Charlotte, and then the other studio I was working at in Greenville at the time had an AI, and just the going from one literally to the next day to the other one was just like, I was like, oh, I hate I knew I didn't like it, but I wasn't sure why. And then listening to them like a real one versus an AI one, I was like, oh, I just don't like this at all.